Heartwarming truth revealed. Millionaire discovers amazing secrets about his children's nanny. David sat in his grand office, the views from the floor-to-ceiling windows revealing sprawling estates cloaked in the hues of early morning light. He ran a successful finance empire, a life many dreamed of, yet his heart felt heavy. He had a pristine home, beautiful cars, and a family that looked perfect on paper, yet peace eluded him. His kids felt distant, like celestial bodies orbiting another galaxy, perfectly beautiful yet unreachable. Then came Laura, the nanny whose warmth cut through the ice around his family. Laura had a way with the children. She turned mundane moments into something special. A simple trip to the park became an epic adventure. Laughter filled the air, echoed off the manicured lawns, but David only noticed when it was convenient. "Thanks for watching the kids," he'd grunt, usually too busy to note the sparkle in their eyes. Then, chaos ensued when Laura took their hands and led them in sing-alongs, building forts, getting dirty in the backyard. They came alive, pure joy radiating from them, and for once David felt envy, even anger, royal in him. Why was someone from such humble beginnings connecting with his kids while he stood outside? But that was just scratching the surface. A bombshell shook his community when a local factory, a vital piece of their neighborhood, suddenly shut down. Panic gripped the families around them. David's first instinct was selfish. How would this affect his financial standing? He watched Laura, however, step into action, organizing soup kitchens and fundraisers, her passion igniting a spark in David's eldest son, Jake. The boy began asking questions that cut straight to the heart, spurring heated discussions at their dinner table about privilege and fairness. Moments turned tense as David felt the divide grow. He felt more like a king on a distant throne than a father. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Day after day, he observed Laura bridging gaps he had erected over the years, demonstrating the essence of community that he had long forgotten. As if woken from a deep slumber, hope began breaching the walls of David's icy demeanor. His children for the first time came home talking about their day with passion, stories of sharing, helping, connecting. Soon he stumbled upon a secret, Laura's past, rich with struggles and triumphs. She'd clawed her way through hardships that made her the remarkable person she was. The very values he thought he had mastered were echoing in her witness. But that revelation would shake the ground beneath him when a shocking family secret intertwined their lives. Would it tear them apart, or could it finally build bridges where none existed? In that charged atmosphere, David stood alone, pondering the meaning of success and questioning if it was time to embrace the hard truths he had always avoided. Would he finally face his fears and open his heart to the genuine connections he had overlooked for too long? The silence in the room buzzed with unanswered questions, leaving all to wonder what was next. The following morning, light streamed through the kitchen windows, casting soft shadows across the breakfast table. David stood there, coffee mug in hand, feeling oddly restless. The recent revelations about Laura weighed heavily on him, mingling with a sense of urgency to confront his children, to truly connect with them. Jake was already seated, his hands wrapped around a bowl of cereal, gaze fixed somewhere distant, as if he were pondering the universe's mysteries. "Dad," Jake finally spoke, breaking the silence, "do you think we can help more families like the ones Laura helps?" David paused, heart thumping against his chest. It was as if his son was peering right into the core of his fears and aspirations. I guess I hadn't really thought about it," he replied, trying to appear nonchalant. But inside, he felt a rush. "Laura says everyone can do something. Even small actions can make a difference," Jake added, looking hopeful. And there it was, the spark of change ignited by someone outside of him, ignited by Laura's genuine spirit. What had he done to contribute to anything but his own world? Jake's words lingered like an echo in his mind, stirring both admiration and something else, something tugging at an old wound within him. As breakfast continued, the door swung open. Laura entered, bright and cheerful, carrying a tray heaped with pastries. Her smile lit up the room, instantly breaking the tension that had begun to coil around them. "Morning, everyone. Who's ready to tackle the day?" David watched as she moved through the space with a grace he'd long forgotten was possible. With each chuckle shared and every story exchanged, he started to see her not just as a caretaker of his children, but as a powerful force who opened doors in the hearts and minds of his family. "You know," Laura began, glancing over at David, "we could organize volunteer days. The soup kitchens need help and the kids could learn so much from it." Her bright eyes sparkled with excitement, and the idea took root in David's mind, a chance to step out of his box, a chance to be a part of something beyond himself. "I think that's a great idea," he said, surprising even himself with the enthusiasm that slipped from his lips. "Count me in." The happiest smile spread across Jake's face, and even David felt the corners of his mouth twitch up. Perhaps it was time to set aside the metrics of success he'd been so focused on. Perhaps it was time to reshape their reality, to build a legacy of kindness, of shared experience. Days turned into weeks, filled with laughter and reflection. Laura became more than just the nanny. She was a vital thread in the fabric of their lives. But with each moment spent together, curiosity gnawed at David. What was the secret hidden in Laura's past that linked them so intimately? Each glance she cast his way made him wonder if their paths had crossed for a reason greater than he could ever understand. It was during a charity event that the truth would finally rise to the surface. Standing at the podium, David's heart raced as he scanned the crowd. The warmth in the room was palpable, but something deeper was brewing. As they raised funds and awareness, David intercepted a glance between Laura and a gentleman across the room. Recognition, maybe even pain, flashing through her eyes before it vanished. Questions buzzed in his mind like insects. What was he missing? What connection tied Laura to that man, and what did it mean for the delicate balance they had begun to weave? Just then, he felt the shadows of uncertainty creeping in again. Was it too late to unravel the truth, or would he discover something that could shatter their fragile bond? The air shifted, heavy with anticipation, as he made his way toward Laura, ready to confront the first of many secrets he hoped would bring them closer, or pull them apart. David approached Laura, the crowd fading into the background as tension tightened around them. Each step felt heavier, as if reality was physically pushing him back. He needed to know what lay behind that fleeting expression, the truth that could redefine everything. "Laura," he said, his voice steady yet layered with emotion, "can we talk for a second?" She looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes, but nodded, taking a small step toward him. They found a quieter corner near the tall potted plants that adorned the hall. The soft rustling of leaves seemed to echo the wild thump of his heart. "Is everything okay?" she asked, concern deepening the softness of her gaze. "It's just, I saw you with that man earlier. The way you looked at him, it felt loaded, like there's something I don't know." The words spilled out before he could reel them back in, a rush of vulnerability he'd never intended to share so openly. Laura's expression shifted, shadows tracing her features. For a moment she glanced away, as if gathering strength from the room's energy before she turned back. "It's complicated, David." Complicated how? He couldn't hold back. His family was beginning to thrive because of her, and he didn't want any secrets pulling them apart. The room began to hum with the voices of other guests, but they felt far away, like whispers lost on an evening breeze. She took a deep breath, looking down at the floor as if it held the answers. "He was a part of my life when I needed help the most, a friend who became something more. But things changed. I moved on, and I thought I had left that behind. When I saw him tonight," her voice trailed off, and he could see the weight of her past pressing down on her. David's heart ached at the thought of her burden. Each layer of her life seemed to make her more human, more real. He stepped closer, reaching out instinctively. "You're not alone in this, you know. Whatever it is, we can face it together." Laura looked up, surprise mingling with gratitude in her eyes. "But what if it changes how you see me? You and the kids?" "This isn't just about me anymore," he interrupted gently. "It's about all of us. Whatever you have to say, I want to hear it." Tears gathered in the corners of her eyes as she took a shaky breath. "I was working a dead-end job when I met him, struggling to get by. He was my ticket out, but I didn't want to owe anyone anything more than I needed to. I chose to walk away, to make my own way. But when he saw me tonight, it brought back memories I thought I had buried." Her words hung in the air, and he could feel the gravity of them resting heavily between them. "Thank you for trusting me enough to share that," David said softly. "You've changed my family's life. Just know that I see you for who you are now, not for who you used to be." Laura gave a small, shaky smile. "I hope that's enough." Their conversation was interrupted as Jake's laughter rang through the room, drawing them from their moment. David smiled. It was blissful, innocent, and it reminded him why they were all in this together. But there was a nagging worry forming in David's mind. If Laura's past were to resurface, how would it affect his children? As they both rejoined the event, David stole a glance at Laura, a newfound appreciation mixed with a growing concern. The truth could either bind them tighter or threaten to unravel the fabric they'd woven. He looked at Laura once more as she engaged with Jake, her laughter spilling over like sunlight breaking through clouds. Could his loyalty to her and the kids withstand the weight of tomorrow's revelations? The question settled in his heart, and the real challenge loomed on the horizon. What would happen when the past couldn't stay buried any longer? As they rejoined the party, David felt a shift in the atmosphere, a kind of tension that lingered in the air like an uninvited guest. The laughter of children mingled with the chatter of adults, yet everything felt slightly out of focus, like a film without clear edges. He couldn't shake off the feeling that something pivotal was about to happen. Jake tugged at his sleeve, grinning widely, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling in David's heart. "Dad, come on, let's get cake." His innocence was a balm, a reminder that decisions made today would ripple into their futures. David knelt down to his son's eye level, the warmth of love mingling with his unease. "Okay, buddy, let's get cake." He ruffled Jake's hair, trying to push aside the thoughts of Laura's past. But as they moved through the crowd, their way blocked by clusters of mingling friends and acquaintances, David's mind raced. What if Laura's past came up in conversation? What if the man she once loved resurfaced, uninvited and unwelcome? Jake beamed as they reached the dessert table. The sight of chocolate-frosted cake made his eyes light up. David couldn't help but smile too, captured by the boy's pure joy. He served Jake a generous slice, watching him devour it with reckless abandon. Meanwhile, David's attention drifted back to Laura. She stood nearby, a picture of grace and poise as she chatted with another guest. Yet there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, a shadow that deepened as she caught his gaze. Despite Jake's animated chatter about cake and sprinkles, David couldn't focus on anything but Laura's distant expression. "I'll be right back," David told Jake, setting the plate down. He made his way back to Laura, navigating through the throngs of guests like a ship at sea, determined to reach the shore. "Everything okay?" he asked, stepping beside her as she turned away from her conversation. The tension in her shoulders seemed to ease just slightly at his presence. "Yeah," Laura replied, but there was a crack in her voice. "I just saw someone I didn't expect to see." "Who?" He searched her face, desperately wanting to understand. "Mark," she breathed, her voice so low he almost didn't catch it. The name dropped like a stone between them, sending ripples of dread shivering through David. "He's here." "Here? Now?" The reality of her words hit him hard. The man from her past was in their midst, hovering like a storm cloud ready to unleash chaos. "I didn't know he'd show up," she murmured, glancing around the room with wide eyes. "I thought I'd left that behind." His heart raced. "We have to tell the kids." "No, not yet. I don't want them involved in this. Not now." The panic in her voice was palpable, and David felt the urge to protect her, to shield their family from any potential fallout. But the air hung heavy with unanswered questions. Could he really promise her this would all go away? As they exchanged tense glances, the weight of the moment pressed down on them, filling the space with unspoken fears. "Laura." David hesitated, unsure of what to say next. But the question loomed, demanding an answer. Would the ghost of her past weave itself into their present? And when she finally looked at him, the look in her eyes told him that now, more than ever, he would have to decide how far he would go to protect this emerging family. David noticed a movement in the corner of his eye, a shadow casting itself among the guests, an unmistakable figure edging closer. This wasn't just about Laura's past anymore. This was a reckoning. As Mark drew nearer, David felt the air shift, and he steeled himself for whatever storm was about to break. What would happen when past and present collided? David's heart pounded in his chest as he took a step closer to Laura, instinctively positioning himself between her and the advancing figure. Mark moved through the crowd with a calm assertiveness, his presence commanding attention. David's grip tightened, a mix of protectiveness and a gnawing uncertainty swirling within him. What do we do? Laura's voice was a whisper, barely above the sounds of laughter and music. Just stay close to me, David replied, trying to maintain an air of calm despite the storm of emotions churning in his stomach. He could see Mark now, his confident stride and easy smile, as if he were merely part of the social fabric of the party rather than an intruder from Laura's past. Jake continued babbling about his cake, blissfully unaware of the tension vibrating between his parents. David stole a quick glance at him, wishing he could shield the boy from this impending clash. Does he even know about us? Laura asked, her eyes darting anxiously back to Mark. Not that I know of, David said, though uncertainty draped over his words. He wished he could sound more reassuring. Then it happened. Mark reached their vicinity and stopped, a bemused expression crossing his face as his gaze landed on Laura. The world around them dulled. David felt as if they'd entered a spotlight, the rest of the party fading away into an indistinct blur. "Laura!" Mark called out, his voice smooth, almost charming. The crowd parted, creating a bubble around them, and the tension thickened like freshly spun sugar. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Mark," she said, keeping her tone flat, devoid of emotion. David sensed the tension in her body. Her stance was defensive, ready for anything. "What a surprise," Mark continued, a disarming smile plastered on his face. "I thought you'd moved on to a quieter life." "Not everyone gets to escape the past as easily as you," Laura shot back, her voice full of feigned calm. David admired her strength, even as anger bubbled beneath the surface. "Of course," Mark replied, feigning hurt. "But don't you think it's worth discussing? We were good together, weren't we?" David's jaw clenched as Mark's words hit like arrows, aimed directly at Laura's heart. Could he really stand there, passive and mute, while the man who had once occupied such a significant space in Laura's life tried to worm his way back in? The urge to step in was overwhelming. "Mark, this isn't the time," David said firmly, finally breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but a flicker of uncertainty lingered in his mind. Would he seem protective or insecure? "Oh, David, isn't it?" Mark turned his attention to him, assessing David with a scrutinizing gaze. "Laura and I go way back. No need to be jealous." "Not jealous, just protective," David retorted, each word weighed with urgency. Laura's eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and anxiety. She chimed in, "This isn't about the past, Mark. It's about moving forward. It's about family." "Family?" Mark echoed, and a shadow seemed to cross his features. "I see. And what if the past has a way of creeping back in? Wouldn't you want to be prepared for that?" A murmur rippled through the onlookers, their interest piqued. Jake's eyes flicked between them, sensing the shift in energy. David hitched a breath, desperate to shield him from the swiftly intensifying tension. The moment hung in the air, thick and charged. They were at a crossroads, and how they navigated it would change everything. "Laura, David hesitated, the urge to pull her close battling with the need to confront the looming specter of Mark. But before he could find the right words, Mark leaned closer, an ominous grin on his face. "What's the real story here, Laura?" "I think it's time you told him the truth." David's heart dropped. What truth? What secrets lay buried beneath the layers of their lives? As the crowd held its breath, one thing was clear: everything was about to change. What was Mark hinting at, and how deep did the past run? David's mind raced, spiraling into worry and confusion as he tried to make sense of Mark's chilling words. The heat of the moment enveloped them, the music fading into a dull thrum, punctuated by whispers from the curious crowd. He felt Laura inch closer, her body language tense but resolute, a silent plea for him to stand firm. "Mark, this isn't a game," Laura said, her voice strained but clear. "There's nothing to discuss about the past." "Is there really nothing?" Mark fired back, tilting his head with interest, as if he were scrutinizing a puzzle. "Surely you can't deny our history. It's quite compelling." The corners of David's mouth tightened. He didn't want this confrontation to shape their future, especially not in front of Jake. He shot a quick glance at their son, who was clinging to a piece of cake, his eyes wide and uncomprehending of the storm brewing just a few feet away. "Can we not do this here?" David interjected, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "He doesn't need to hear this." "Oh, but he should, don't you think?" Mark's gaze flickered over to Jake, a smirk forming on his lips. "Kids need to know the truth about their parents. All of it." Laura's face blanched, hurt flashing in her eyes. "Jake only needs to know that we love him. That's what matters." Mark stepped closer, encroaching upon David's personal space. "Love isn't enough, Laura, especially when secrets linger in the shadows. Don't you think it's time your little family had a reality check?" David's heart raced. What did Mark know? What could he possibly reveal that would disrupt the fragile dynamic they had built together? He felt fear clawing at him. He couldn't let the past unravel their present. "You don't know anything about us," David snapped, a fierce determination surging within him. He couldn't back down, not now. "Oh, but I do. I know how things ended, Laura, and that doesn't just disappear." Mark stepped back slightly, eyes sparkling with a dangerous excitement. "I know about the sacrifices you made, the ones you still hide from your perfect little life here." A nerve in Laura's jaw ticked. David could see her fighting to maintain composure, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. It was like watching a dam about to burst, and he hated seeing her like this, vulnerable, exposed to the person she once left behind. "Mark, stop it," Laura finally said, her voice barely a whisper but charged with strength. "Don't talk about what you don't understand." "Isn't that what you keep telling yourself? Because believe me, I understand more than you realize." The tension exploded, wrapping them all in its tight grip. The murmurs from the surrounding guests grew louder, the mixture of shock and curiosity swirling around like smoke. David's instincts kicked in. He needed to break this spell before it consumed them all. "Laura," he said softly, leaning towards her, "we don't have to engage, we can walk away." "I can't just walk away, David." Her voice cracked, revealing a vulnerability he hadn't expected. "He's bringing up things I thought were behind me." At that moment, Jake turned to them. "Mommy, who's he?" His innocent question hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. Laura knelt down, meeting her son's gaze, but the pain flickered in her eyes. "It's okay, sweetie. Just an old friend of mine." "Old friend?" Mark repeated mockingly. "I'm more like an old chapter in her story, one she hoped would stay closed. Am I right, Laura?" The blow landed hard, and David could see Laura's resolve faltering. Something inside him snapped. He couldn't let Mark win, not today. "Leave her alone, Mark," David said fiercely, grounding himself beside Laura. "You're out of line." Mark grinned, eyes glinting with malice. "Am I? Or am I just bringing a little clarity to the situation?" "Clarity?" David scoffed. "You're not here to help, you're here to sow chaos." "Maybe, but sometimes chaos is necessary for growth." Mark's voice dropped, dangerously low. "Laura needs to face the facts. All of them." As the crowd continued to murmur, David could feel the collective weight of their gazes pressing down like a heavy blanket. He wanted to scream, to shout, to send Mark packing. Yet he couldn't ignore the truth of those words. "Laura, if there's something you want to say," David began hesitantly. Her eyes met his, a flicker of uncertainty mingling with desperation. "I need to protect Jake," she whispered. "Then let's talk. Just not here." David's heart sank. Was the truth something she needed to share? Would it push them apart or bring them closer? But as these thoughts raced through him, Mark's voice interrupted, a smirk creasing his lips. Well, Laura, it's time you decided. Face it now or let it crush you later. In that stillness, with the spotlight unhappily focused on them, everything seemed poised on the edge of a cliff. The weight of the past hung over their future, waiting to fall. How deep did the secrets run? And would both Laura and David emerge unscathed? The silent answer hovered in the air, leaving a bitter taste of uncertainty. What truth was she hiding, and how would it change their lives forever? Laura felt the air thicken around her as the eyes of the crowd bore down, their whispers an unwelcome soundtrack to an already strained moment. The vibrant colors of the party felt muted, like an old photograph fading into the background. She glanced at Jake, and her heart ached at the innocence in his eyes. He didn't need this. None of them did.
Mommy?
Jake's voice pulled her back. His brow was furrowed, confusion and concern etched across his small face. Why is that man being mean? Laura swallowed hard, forcing a smile even as her insides twisted. Honey, it's okay. Just a misunderstanding. She glanced at David, who stood firm beside her, a bulwark against Mark's relentless assault. He was trying to protect them, and the gratitude she felt was overshadowed by the growing storm inside her. Mark stepped forward again, the smirk reappearing. Misunderstanding? Or perhaps a truth long buried? Either way, it's a story that deserves telling, wouldn't you agree? Stop it, David warned, his voice low and menacing. You're crossing a line. And what will you do if I do? Beat me? I'd like to see you try. Mark's bravado filled the space, ballooning around them like a hot air balloon ready to burst. Let's get out of here, David suggested, looking at Laura earnestly. We can't let him drag us into this, not in front of Jake. But Laura shook her head, overwhelmed. I can't just run, she said, her voice rising slightly. If there's something he knows, we need to face it. Face it? Mark interjected, eyebrows raised. You really think hiding won't hurt him more later? He leaned closer, menace lacing every speck of his condescending tone. Let's not kid ourselves. The truth has a way of surfacing, always. The pulse of the crowd quickened, eager for drama. It felt like they were the center of a stage, trapped in an act they didn't want to perform. David's grip on Laura's shoulder tightened, grounding her. She could feel his warmth even through her rising dread. Laura, David said softly, whatever it is, we can handle it together. You don't have to face this alone. Her heart raced, mingling fear and hope. She looked into David's eyes, searching for reassurance. All those moments they shared rushed back. The laughter over kitchen mishaps, the quiet evenings lost in each other's company. They had built a fragile life, and she clung to the belief it could withstand this storm. But secrets are sneaky. They don't just stay hidden, they fester, spreading like poison. Mark's words drummed around in her mind as she recalled the sudden changes in her life, the choices she made in her past that still echoed in her present. It was all woven together, inextricably tied. Jake, sweetheart, can you head to the snack table for me? Laura said, her voice steadier now. I'll be right there. But, Jake frowned, looking from his mother to Mark. Just for a moment, okay? She whispered. Go on. With a hesitant nod, he wandered off, trailing cake crumbs behind. The moment felt heavy and all too real. It was just the three of them now, David, Laura, and Mark. A triangle of tension poised to snap. Now we can talk, Mark said, his voice creating a chill. What will it be, Laura? The truth out in the open, or buried underneath more lies? Laura took a deep breath. You won't play puppet master today, Mark. I won't let you. Isn't that what you've been doing all along, hiding, pretending? He shot back, eyes glinting with an unsettling glee. David's eyes narrowed. Leave her alone. Whatever you think you know doesn't matter. But it matters to her. And it matters to you, David. Mark leaned in, lowering his voice to a whisper, as if sharing a deadly secret. The past doesn't leave when we want it to. As Laura stood at the crossroads of her memories, she understood that facing the truth wouldn't just be for her, it was for Jake too. A decision loomed ahead, and it felt monumental. Fine, Laura said, voice trembling but steady. Let's talk. Mark's smirk broadened as he prepared to reveal the dark threads of their shared past. A chill ran down Laura's spine. What was she about to unleash? And as the crowd hushed in anticipation, she wondered, would this call to face the past save their family or shatter it for good? A thick silence enveloped them, a fog heavy with unspoken truths. The eyes of the crowd shifted back and forth like spectators at a tense tennis match, anticipation crackling in the air. Laura could feel David's protective stance beside her, but inside, her heart raced and her hands trembled slightly. Mark could smell the fear, and it fueled the smirk that carved deeper into his face. "Let's start with a simple question," Mark continued, leaning back slightly, almost relaxed in this game of shadows. "How long do you think the truth can stay buried, Laura? A week, a month, or perhaps it's been years already?" "Enough." David's voice sliced through the tension. "You need to back off." But Mark wasn't deterred. He looked at Laura, the wicked glint in his eyes pulling her to the edge. "You have no idea how long I've waited for this moment. You left pieces of yourself everywhere, your past, your mistakes. I'm just here to help you collect them." "You think this is helping?" Laura shot back, her voice sharper now. "You're just trying to stir up chaos." "It's your chaos, Laura," he whispered, pushing closer, invading her space. "You can't pretend it doesn't exist. You owe it to Jake to tell him the truth, whatever that truth might be." Laura felt a wave of nausea wash over her, her instincts clawing at her to flee. But Jake, she had to think of him. Every choice she had made, every quiet moment alone with her thoughts, deserved to be brought to light. But the fear of how it would all tumble down made her hesitate. "Jake will be fine, he's a smart boy," Mark taunted, all the while watching her closely. "But will you still be fine once everything's out there? Or will it all just blow up in your face?" As the crowd murmured, she briefly caught sight of Jake returning, his small hands holding 2 cups of punch, innocence etched in his expression. The sight broke her heart further. How could she protect him from this tidal wave of truth? "Mommy, are you okay?" Jake asked, his voice small, suddenly close. "Yes, sweetheart," she managed, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. She crouched down to his level and brought him into her arms. "Just some grown-up talk. Nothing for you to worry about." Her grip tightened around him. Though she wanted to shield him, the weight of secrets hung in the air, threatening to spill over. "See?" Mark cajoled. "Even Jake can sense something's off. You can't hide from him, Laura. And soon, you won't be able to hide from yourself." The crowd was leaning in now, hooked by the raw tension, sensing the drama unfolding like a well-rehearsed play. But Laura was on the brink. She felt as if she was standing on a precipice, every possible outcome swirling in a storm around her. "Mark, please," David said, trying to navigate the divide. "You're playing a dangerous game." Mark laughed, a low, unsettling sound. "No, David. Dangerous was when Laura decided to keep quiet. I'm merely the messenger here." With Jake looking up at her with wide, trusting eyes, Laura felt a surge of determination. "You want to know the truth, Mark? Fine. You want to drag everything into the light? Let's do it." Mark's delight was palpable, but instead of fear, Laura felt something else. Was it courage or desperation? She could only hope that whatever lay ahead would not destroy the fragile family they had fought so hard to build. As she steeled herself, those words echoed in her mind. Let's do it. What truth would emerge, tangled and raw? In the crowd's breathless anticipation, Laura felt the shift happen deep within herself. But the question that loomed was, would the light they were about to bring forth lead to healing, or would it ignite a fire that burned everything in its path? The moment hung in the air like a stretched rubber band ready to snap. Laura knew she was risking everything, yet the thought of secrets chaining her to a past she couldn't forget felt heavier than the fear coursing through her veins. "All right," she began, her voice firm yet trembling. "What do you really want to know?" Mark leaned in, a glint of glee in his eyes. "Start with why Jake's father isn't here. Or better yet, who he actually is." Gasps trickled through the gathered crowd, a whisper of disbelief that rippled like waves across a calm lake suddenly disturbed. They were hungry for drama, and she was the unintended lead in this unwritten play. Choked on her breath, Laura shifted Jake slightly in her arms, trying to shield him from the chaos swirling around them. His little body fit perfectly in the cocoon of her embrace, his warmth a soothing balm against her panic. How could she possibly navigate this storm without exposing him to the devastation that followed her every step? She hesitated, struggling to find her footing, but Mark pressed on, a predator awaiting a chance to pounce. "Just say it," he urged, his voice dripping with false innocence. "You've kept this secret long enough. Don't you think it's time for Jake to know about his father?" The phrase felt like a dagger. "Jake knows his father," she insisted, biting back the hurt that threatened to spill. "And he loves him." Loves? Is that what you call it? A love based on lies? Lies that hide behind a smile? Mark's taunting was relentless. It had claws, sharp and jagged. He thinks his father is someone he can trust, but is that really fair? With every word, Laura felt the crowd shift, a collective weight pressing against her. They were watching and waiting, and within that watchful gaze, she began to feel raw and exposed. Yet within her, that spark of defiance kindled once more. "Maybe it's not fair," she relented, finally releasing a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "But every decision since has been made out of love. I have protected Jake. It was the only way to keep him safe." "Safe?" Mark laughed, a sound that sliced deeper than a blade. "You're suffocating him. Look at him." Jake's innocent gaze seemed to cut through the tension. "Mommy?" Jake's voice wavered, sensing the shift. "Is everything okay?" Laura's heart twisted at his question. "Everything is fine, sweetheart," she said, forcing a smile that cracked under the pressure of fear. "Really? Just, some tough conversations." "Your conversations are hurting him, Laura." Mark seized the opportunity, capitalizing on her wavering strength. "You think shielding him from the truth is protecting him? It's time to bring him into the light." As the murmurs grew louder, Laura felt the world around her start to spin. "What if I'm doing the right thing? What if this is the only way?" "By tearing him apart," Mark's tone dripped with scorn. "I told you to back off." David's protective shout crashed into the scene like thunder, but Laura felt her focus return to the unfolding moment. With every breath rattling through her lungs, Laura met Jake's wide, trusting eyes. She couldn't afford to let him get dragged through this. Yet at that moment, a dawning realization hit her. Maybe Mark was right. A part of her was suffocating under the weight of the lies. "Maybe it's time for the truth," her voice barely rose above a whisper, "for both of us." The air thickened with tension as the crowd leaned in, anticipation hanging like ripe fruit. Laura's heart raced as she considered what steps she might take next. Would revealing everything help break the chains that bound her, or would it tear apart everything she held dear? "Are you ready for the fallout, Laura?" Mark's grin widened. "Because I assure you it's going to be explosive." And as she opened her mouth to answer, it felt like the very foundation of her life was about to shift again. Would she embrace the truth, or let it slip through her fingers? It was the moment of reckoning she never wanted, but now she found herself longing for something different. What answer would break her silence, and more importantly, how many lives would be changed forever within a single moment? The crowd held their breath, waiting like the calm before a storm as Laura paced on the precipice of revelation. The fear within her wrestled against a newfound resolve, the courage to face what had haunted her for so long, pushing its way to the forefront. "Mark," she began with a tremor in her voice, "you want me to tell the truth? Fine. But don't think for a second that your words carry any weight here." The murmurs of intrigue from the watchers faded into an expectant hush, filled with tension that buzzed like electricity in the air. David stepped a little closer, his presence a steady anchor beside her. "Jake, sweetheart," she called softly, her heart aching at the sight of her son watching with innocent confusion. "You know how much I love you, right?" "Yeah, Mommy," Jake responded, his brow furrowed, but his voice steady. "That's why I'm not worried." His words lightly scratched at her soul, filling her with both strength and pain. "You trust me?" she asked, needing him to understand the gravity of this moment. "Yes," he chirped, unwavering. "Okay," she whispered, gathering her thoughts as if they were all tied together in a fragile ribbon spinning delicately in the air. "I need to tell you something important about our family, something I should have shared sooner." Mark stepped forward, eyes gleaming with the thrill of near triumph urging her on. Go on, Laura. The audience is dying to know who Jake's father really is. She inhaled deeply as emotions battled within her. Would this bring healing or hurt? The choices she'd made pressed in on her, wrapping like vines around her heart. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing she could fall, but also hope for the rise. Jake, she began again, steadying her voice, your father is someone I haven't talked about much, and maybe I should have. The tension simmered. The crowd was hanging on every word. David shifted beside her, ready to protect her from judgment, but she needed to take this step. Your father is Mark, but not the Mark you know now, she said, surprising herself with the strength in her tone. Mark's grin faltered momentarily. He was someone who loved me when things were tough, and I made choices to keep you safe from the pain that came with that love. An unsettling silence enveloped them, the crowd absorbing the twist like a plot in a gripping novel. Mark finally broke the stillness, laughter dancing on his lips, but there was an edge to it. Look at this, he jeered, the great victim complex. If you think I'm the villain, you're mistaken, Laura. This is your drama. Not anymore, she shot back, the words tasting bitter but freeing. It's time for truth, not just for me, but for all of us. I held on to this story thinking it would protect Jake, but I see now that honesty is the only way to build the trust we need. Do you think this will help him? He countered. Telling him his father is someone like me? Maybe, she replied, emotion filling her voice. But hiding this will only drive a wedge between us. She turned her gaze back to Jake, who was studying their exchange closely. You know how much our family means to me, right? She gently squeezed his hand. He nodded, still not fully comprehending the gravity of this revelation. Your father. Ever since I left that life behind, I've tried to carve a path that offered you love and safety, but it was fear that made me keep so much of it locked away. Her heart raced, but she wasn't trembling anymore. Instead, she was fueled by her son's bright, innocent gaze. Mark shifted nervously, the spotlight now dangerously fixed on him. But Laura, do you really think he'll feel safe knowing he's tethered to someone like me? I think he'll feel safe because we are together, because we are family, Laura said, her conviction solid. You may think you're a thread in this fabric, but you're more of a shadow. It's our lives that will define our family, not you. A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Laura felt David's hand rest on her shoulder, grounding her as the tension between Mark and her built like a coiled spring. Now you've done it, Mark sneered, anger creeping into his tone. You aren't strong enough to break this family. You'll watch it crumble first. No, David stepped in, displaying a calm strength like a shield. The only thing crumbling is your hold on her. This is our time to move forward. Just then, Jake's small voice piped up, cutting through the building tension. Mommy, I know my family loves me, no matter what. Her heart swelled at her son's words, and just like that it clicked. The truth wasn't just about who Jake's father was, it was about proving to him that love could conquer the shadows of fear. Exactly, Laura said, meeting Jake's eyes, and that's why I need to face this, because you deserve a family defined by love, not by the choices of the past. An unexpected silence followed, each face in the crowd absorbing the raw honesty of Laura's words. Mark's bravado faltered, the weight of his past crashing against the walls he thought too strong to breach. You think you can rewrite history? He spat, fragility creeping into his voice now. I'm not rewriting it. I'm reclaiming it, Laura said, the sentiment echoing in the air like a powerful mantra. Time seemed to pause, and in that pregnant moment, everyone sensed a shift. David held her gaze, sturdy and unwavering. Together, he echoed. We are stronger together. Laura could feel warmth flooding through her, a sense of belonging washing over the weight that had rested on her chest for too long. With that simple yet profound bond echoed back to her, clarity wrapped around her heart like a cherished embrace. So, Mark, she said, her voice steady, whatever you thought holding my past hostage would do, it won't work. This is our story now. Silence enveloped them once again, deeper than before. The tension melted away like winter snow under a spring sun, paving way for an open field filled with the blossoms of new beginnings. Mark stood there, momentarily stripped of his bravado, lost in the revelation that the past he sought to control could no longer bind them. And in that precious moment, she felt it. The dawning of a new narrative, one that could breathe a deeper life into their makeshift family, anchored in love, understanding, and truth. As Jake's small hand tightened in hers, she knew they could face whatever lay ahead. The whispers of the crowd faded slowly, but the warmth of their presence lingered like the glow of the morning sun. The world around them shifted, redefined by the power of truth, binding them together, and with it, the promise of something deeper, hope and healing that could rise from the ashes of yesterday. "Let's go home," Laura whispered, feeling the weight lift off her shoulders, a new beginning blooming in her chest. And as they left that moment behind, ready for whatever came next, she knew they had taken a step toward a future unbound by fear. If today had been about confronting shadows, tomorrow would be about building bridges, and she wouldn't walk that road alone. Now, what are you waiting for? This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. Your thoughts mean the world to us. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Let's build this community together.